Who really owns the South African Reserve Bank? This is according to the dailyinvestor.com. It has over 800 shareholders, including notable entities such as ABSA, the Anton Rupert Trust, Discovery, the First Rand Bank, and more. I'm going to come back with my commentary and read the rest of the article. I'll also attach it in the description. Click the link, go read for yourself. But in the meantime, go watch the video that I'm attaching and let us meet in the comment section.
After collecting 1.5 trillion, then the government must have a lot of money in order to do development and to do the things that the government must do. But in truth, the government doesn't have any money. What happens, because immediately after they have collected the 1.5 trillion rand through the tax collection, what they must do is that they must give back the money back to the South African Reserve Bank. And you ask yourself, why would they take the tax collection and give it to the South African Reserve Bank? Well, because the South African government, actually, the South Africa owes the South African Reserve Bank. At the moment, I think that the money that they owe the South African Reserve Bank is about 5 trillion. So each time they have collected money through SARS, they take all of it and give it to the South African Reserve Bank. After which the government becomes bankrupt. But the government needs to operate on a daily basis. It needs money to pay salaries, it needs money to pay services, it needs to deliver services. So after having been 1.5 trillion rich like today, and then the next hour, South African government is bankrupt, they then have to go back to the very same South African Reserve Bank to borrow money. And then of course they will agree, maybe let's say South African Reserve Bank say, okay, we will give you 1.2 trillion. Okay, they give the South African government 1.2 trillion. Then this then creates a problem. It creates a problem in which South Africa as a country operates on perpetual debt. That's why they'll be telling that, the South Africa owes 5 trillion. You ask yourself, 5 trillion, how does South Africa owe 5 trillion? To whom does it owe 5 trillion? It owes 5 trillion rands to the South African Reserve Bank. Because you must remember, the South African Reserve Bank is a privately owned bank. You see, but they call it the South African Reserve Bank so that you may think that it is a South African entity. It's not. I'm not even going to go into deep into who has the shares or who owns it, whether these people who we have been told in public that they own shares like the National Mandela Children's Fund and the likes of Rupert, whether it's true or they're just front. What I am trying to tell you is that we live under perpetual debt to the South African Reserve Bank. Meaning that the money that the South African government use to provide services to the people is not money, it's debt money. This is the money that the South African government borrows from the South African Reserve Bank. That's why the South African Reserve Bank is the only institution which has the exclusive rights to print South Africa's money. Since 1921, remember, the South African Reserve Bank has been printing money for the Union of the Afrikaner and the British. It has been printing money for the apartheid system. It is now printing money for the South African democracy. Realize there's never been a tender, there's never been any contract being advertised and say, oh, South Africa needs a company to print its money, and then people bid, and then whoever has the best bid wins. And then you ask yourself, who gave the South African Reserve Bank, a privately owned bank, the exclusive rights to print South Africa's money? And another question becomes, if South Africa is able to collect taxes, in this case where I'm giving an example of South Africa having collected 1.5 trillion, why would South Africa need an external institution or company to print its money? Why can't South Africa just buy a printer and paper and print the money? It can't, because that's how the system is designed. The system is designed to enslave the people. But the slavery must be in such a way that it must not be visible, because if it becomes visible, then you're going to have a revolution. But for hundreds of years, what these people have done, this Eurocentric civilization have been doing, is that they are trying to make sure that they desensitize people to see what is really going on, to the point that they will accept the slavery way of doing things as the only way of doing things, that there could not be any other way. Because if South Africans are people who are thinking, they must be asking themselves, we could fire the South African Reserve Bank and then we could just get the South African government to print its own money. Why can't they do that? Why does a privately owned bank, which they've already told us that the likes of Tito Mboweni have shares at South African Reserve Bank, the likes of Rupert, the ABSA, the First Rand, they also have shares there. Why then do they have the exclusive rights to print our money? Why is there no tender where it is advertised? Because remember, to print the government money is just a service. It is just something that you do. You print money and then you put it in the supply. They can't do that because the agreements which were made about this country were finished over 100 years ago. All you do when you become the president, you must follow the dictates of how South Africa's economy is run. And the politicians will never talk about this because then they will lose their political career. You see? So they agree that we should be slaves to the South African Reserve Bank by allowing it to print our money so that we can always be under perpetual debt. And because the South African Reserve Bank more than prints money, it determines the price of things through inflation, meaning that when they want to destroy the value of things, they print more money. And when they want to raise the value of things, they print less money. And yet, this service is being done by a private bank. Imagine the entire economy of an entire country of close to 60 million people is in the hands of private people. And then the politicians don't see anything wrong with that. And the white people who believe that they are smart, the Afrikaners and other Europeans in South Africa, they don't see anything wrong with that because they don't think up to that level. Because the majority of people believe that as soon as I get my degree and then I get my job and then I get my apartment or house and that German car, they think they've made it. But they don't realize that you are a slave. You are a slave to the South African Reserve Bank. And people, this is going to get worse. I'll tell you why it's going to get worse. Because right now what is going to happen is that to perpetuate the slavery of us to the South African Reserve Bank, there will be international banks who are now going to infiltrate the local municipalities. What they're going to do, how they're going to do it, but they're going to find a way in which they're going to also make sure that, let's say, eThekwini municipality receive 500 billion from the state to do its operations. What international bankers are going to do, they are going to make sure that somehow this 500 billion rand end up going to the international bankers, and then which then also bankrupts the municipality. But because the financial cycle will still be will close like in months to come, so the municipality will have no choice but to go and borrow money. And they're not going to go and borrow money in the local banks. So they're going to go and borrow money from these international banks like the IMF and the World Bank, which then creates another perpetual debt cycle for South Africa. So you have South Africa at national level being a slave to the South African Reserve Bank. And then you're going to have South Africa at local level being a slave to international banks like the World Bank or the International Monetary Fund. And then these are the kind of things that cannot be talked about in public. Because then you're going to realize that South Africa is not even a country. South Africa is just an extension of countries who have vested interests in South Africa. South Africa is not even an economy. South Africa is an extension of economies of North America and Western Europe through the central bank, through the perpetual debt cycle where the tax collection is used to pay the debt, which then bankrupts the country, and then the country must go back to the same bank which it has bankrupt and borrow money, and then use the money, which is debt, to develop. So all the money that is being spent in government, in the state, is not money, it's debt. They are servicing a debt, and each time they collect taxes, they take the taxes to pay the debt. And I know some smart people are going to say, hey, this conspiracy. Ask them. Ask anyone who's going to tell you that what I'm saying is a conspiracy theory. Ask them, how does the South African Reserve Bank make money and generate a profit? We know how the banks make money. They borrow people loans, they finance cars and homes, and then they charge you interest. But you must ask yourself this question: how does the South African Reserve Bank make money? Ask them that, and you will see.
The central bank also has international shareholders from Germany, France, the United Kingdom, the United States, and Norway. This is revealed in the South African Reserve Bank's shareholder index as of 30 June 2022. And the shareholders index report is a shortened version of the shareholders electronic register maintained at the Reserve Bank's head office. The South African Reserve Bank is one of the only 9 central banks worldwide with private shareholders. It is the oldest central bank in Africa and the 4th oldest central bank outside of Europe. And the shareholders have no right or involvement in determining monetary policy, financial stability policy, or regulation and supervision of the financial sector. Their rights are limited to considering the Reserve Bank's annual financial statements, electing 7 of the non-executive directors of the board of directors, appointing external auditors, and approving their remuneration.